appointed by Republican presidents to the judiciary. In the January 6th committee hearing this week, I want to bring in Congressman Adam Kinzinger, one of two Republican members of that committee. It was pretty stunning testimony. As you look at the hearings that have been held so far, what do you think is the bottom line takeaway for the American people?
Look, I think the bottom line to all this is, first off, nothing has changed, in essence, from those days. So we could very much focus on this again. But I think, the thing I think that people need to stand out from these hearings is how much the president was involved in the lead up to January 6th, how we got to a position where so many people charged the Capitol because, honestly, they believed that the election was stolen. And I think, you know, in an American democracy, how we've been raised to believe, how we were formed, you know, if you truly believe the deep state owned the election and the democracy was stolen and the election was stolen, that's the most logical outcome. And that's what I want people to see is, look, the president knew what he was doing. There was a plan, but nothing's changed.
You say the president knew what he was doing, and 6 in 10 Americans, according to our new poll with Ipsos, believe the president should be criminally prosecuted for his role in the January 6th insurrection. But as you know, there are difficulties in prosecution as well. Proving state of mind, proving intent is the key factor there. How do you do that?
Look, I mean, what we can do from the committee's perspective is show, you know, as we have so far, for instance, the pressure that was coming down on Mike Pence and how the president knew what he was doing and how he had been stopped prior at other areas. We're going to be talking Thursday about some of the stuff with the DOJ. We're going to have a discussion Tuesday about state pressure. And so you can see where the president knew all of that stuff. We can, I think, show the American people that. Now, what can the Department of Justice do in a court of law? That's up to them. They can, you know, have their own information. They'll be able to see what we're doing here. And it truly is unprecedented. But let's be honest. This attack on January 6th is unprecedented, and the rot that led up to it is also unprecedented. It is essential at this moment that we get a grip on this and figure out how to defend our democracy.
It's up to the Department of Justice in the end, but have you reached the conclusion that President Trump should be prosecuted?
I certainly think the president is guilty of knowing what he did, seditious conspiracy, being involved in these, you know, kind of different segments of pressuring DOJ, vice president, et cetera. Obviously, you know, we're not a criminal charges committee, so I want to be careful in specifically using that language. But I think what we're presenting before the American people certainly would rise to a level of criminal involvement by a president and definitely failure of the oath. The oath has to matter here. Your personal demand to stand for the Constitution has to matter. And if you have people that don't regard that at all, there is no law in the world that we can pass that's going to make a bit of difference.
You're in a small minority among Republicans, only one of 2 Republicans on the committee. Our new poll also shows a huge partisan divide. 91% of Democrats believe that President Trump should be prosecuted, only 19% of Republicans. 91% of Democrats believe the president bears ultimate responsibility for what happened, only 21% of Republicans. How do you explain that gap? How do you explain the views of a majority of Republicans?
Well, look, I would guess that before Nixon, you know, really resigned, you'd probably see something fairly similar. Now, this is obviously, we're in a way worse position, I think, today. And I think this blows actually Watergate, you know, out of the water. But how do I explain it? Is leadership, lack of leadership in the Republican Party. So if you have people that don't trust what they hear on the media, or they don't trust what they hear from certain leaders, and everybody has people they trust in where they get their information, but that whole segment of leaders that Republican voters trust, that includes Kevin McCarthy, of course that includes Donald Trump and others. If you're going to stand in front of those people and lie to them and tell them Donald Trump's right, the election was stolen, because that has you give me $20 when I send you the next email, or it's way easier for my primary election, we can have no doubt that 80% of the country is going to believe what their leaders are saying. This is where, like, if you're not willing to tell people the truth in America, you shouldn't run for Congress. Like, go do something else. But this should be a position where you can tell the hard truth. And unfortunately, my party has utterly failed the American people at truth. It makes me sad, but it's a fact.
Makes you sad. Has also put you under some threat. Your staff shared some communications you and your family have received. We can't put it up on the screen. It's too ugly for that, too dangerous for that. How worried are you about your personal safety?
Look, I'm not worried personally. This threat that came in, it was mailed to my house. We got it a couple days ago, and it threatens to execute me as well as my wife and 5-month-old child. I've never seen or had anything like that. It was sent from the local area. I don't worry, but now that I have a wife and kids, of course, it's a little different. There are people that there is violence in the future, I'm going to tell you. And until we get a grip on telling people the truth, we can't expect any differently.
All signs are pointing to the next election having a similar controversy at the end of the day. It's very possible. We're seeing allies of President Trump being elected to run elections in state after state. I've already pointed out the divide between Republicans and Democrats over what happened on January 6th. How worried are you about 2024?
Very worried. You know, I have an organization, Country First, country1st.com. One of the things we're focusing on are those like election level elections as well. The people that will determine whether they certify an election, you know, what kind of equipment's being used. We just saw recently in New Mexico, people refusing to certify an election because they use Dominion voting machines, which are actually really good voting machines, but they bought into this conspiracy. And this is the untold thing. We focus so much on what goes on in D.C. and Congress and the Senate, but when you have these election judges that are going to people that don't believe basically in democracy, authoritarians, 2024 is going to be a mess. And wake up, America. Wake up, Republicans, because this is not going to be good for you if you think it is.
Congressman Kinzinger, thanks for your time this morning.
You bet.